everybody, welcome back to the Alpha Primus channel. Today we will be reviewing Studio Series 86 Deluxe Class Bumblebee.
So I've been quite excited for this one. How about you, Nathan?
Yes.
Yeah. So we do have, wait. Nathan already has the studio, well, not studio, this is the Studio Series. Hello, Simba. Nathan already has the Netflix Bumblebee. However, I think this guy is different, but I think he's going to be my favourite. So obviously we have the regular packaging, this very cool artwork here, and on the back obviously it shows that he has his little background here, and he's got 23 steps in transformation. I think I prefer this alt mode to the Netflix version, but we'll do a comparison with that later on. So Nathan, first impressions?
So in the box he looks pretty clean.
Yeah.
He looks quite impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like a solid Bumblebee figure, really. It does capture the face and expression of Bumblebee.
Yeah. Now this is something. So with this pose here, I love this pose, and I love this little battle cry face almost. And whilst I like this, what I would think would be a really cool thing if they had alternative heads, because it would be really cool to be able to put him in this sort of pose with this face. But I wouldn't want this face all the time. It's like when he stood like this, you wouldn't want that face. But when he's like in an action pose, and I think that would have been, especially because he is relatively a small deluxe compared to regular deluxes. So, but anyway, enough chatting about that. Let's get him out of the box. And here he is out of the box. Nathan, your first impressions.
So I first looked at him and I thought that looked like proper Bumblebee paint.
Mm-hmm.
He does look like straight from the cartoon.
Yep.
And I think his design's like quite kind of sleek. It's a really nice design. The windows are black, but something about them just like makes them look more like the cartoon that they were.
Okay.
Because they're like transparent windows. It wasn't as
Well, yeah, they weren't always transparent in the cartoon, where they'd have to do them painted.
Yeah.
Sort of like Optimus Primes were always like a sky blue, weren't they?
His face sculpt is actually pretty cool. I really like that. They've paid quite a bit of attention to detail there.
Yeah. I mean, you look at him and you automatically go,
That's Bumblebee.
Bumblebee. Yeah, there's no mistake. I mean, it's not exactly hard to get Bumblebee right, is it? Yeah, it's unmistakably Bumblebee. We have the Netflix Bumblebee and Goldbug, which we'll bring in for the comparisons later, and they're really good molds as well. However, I definitely prefer this. Like I say, it just, the colour, like you say, the head sculpt just looks very original Bumblebee. And I think whilst I kind of understand the blacks maybe not necessarily necessary on the windows, it does sort of fit into the brand of Bumblebee being black and yellow. So yeah, I think it might have been. I wonder what it would have looked like if the windows were painted blue instead of black. But I don't mind it. I think he still looks pretty cool. I like his gun. You know, it's a very simple little thing, but nice little detail on it. Simple enough. So all in all, we're quite impressed with this guy, aren't we, really?
Yeah, a lot more impressed than the Netflix Bumblebee, who looks orange.
But we'll go on to comparisons in a few minutes. So, like, you've had a little mess around with him. You were really impressed with his articulation, weren't you?
Yes.
Yeah, for such a little guy.
Well, on the legs, really.
On the legs.
Not as much as on the arms, because they're not very well articulated, but the legs are.
Okay. So, speaking of articulation, let's move on to that. Okay, so as you know by now, guys, all the Transformers are on a ball joint, so it makes it a lot easier for turning his head. He can't really look up. That's probably about as far. You can see a tiny little gap between his chin and his chest, but he can look down a little bit. You know, again, you got a tiny little gap between the back of his head and his back. So yeah, he does. It's a typical ball joint. Unfortunately, he can't look all the way up and all really, really down, but good enough. His arms can go out. They're on a ball joint, so they can go all the way around, and they can go out, and nice little cool there. There is a swivel just above the elbow, so we can do a 360 there. He's obviously got his elbow joint and his wrist can move. Same on that side. He does have full swivel at the waist. His arm is on a hinge, so yeah, it can go all the way. I think it's on a pin, isn't it? So it goes all the way out. Can kick forward. I'd say that's 90 degrees. Kick back. Yeah, he gets 90. He can't go further because of his hip there, but that's all right. He has a thigh swivel. He has an elbow, a knee, obviously a knee articulation, and then there's like a little bit on the ankle, like going back and forth. But he does have a rocker as well. So the ankle sort of back and forth is a bit lower than the actual tilt. The tilt is this little bit here, just underneath the knee. But yeah, so overall, articulation is pretty impressive. Let's go on to comparisons. So for our first comparison, we obviously have Earthrise Optimus Prime, who will be retiring from his role as the standard Optimus Prime because we do have Studio Series Optimus Prime on pre-order, and as soon as we get him, we'll be doing a review of him, and he will probably be our go-to Optimus Prime for size comparisons going forward. But I think this one is still pretty well scaled. I know Commander 86 is a little bit bigger than this one, so I don't know. I think he's a good size, Nathan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he fits in well.
I mean, yeah, he was a lot smaller than the cartoon, a lot smaller here.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get on to the Netflix and Goldbug. So here we have Netflix, Goldbug, and Bumblebee. And, yep, they are all three. Well, these two are definitely the same mould. I know one thing, what was a bit of a bugbear with people was the fact that he's a bit of a parts former with this part having to come off and stuff like that. Whereas he's just one big piece in this version. I'm not gonna lie. Let me lower this camera a little bit here, so for a sec. I love Netflix Bumblebee. Before this one came along, I thought was a really, really good Bumblebee. However, I'm kind of like with Nathan now, where he looks almost orange, whereas like before, I never really.
You never really picked up on that, I know, because.
Not that I didn't pick up on it, I just don't think I cared. But now that I see this one, I think had this one had the same colour as this one, I still like this one. I think this one looks more like a Volkswagen Beetle than this guy. And obviously he's got the clear plastic for his windows. So his alt mode, I would say, looks a little bit better. But I do like the colouring of this one.
Yeah, I mean, again, just like, if they just painted this one yellow and maybe put the Autobot symbol there,
yeah,
he would have been absolutely great. But like,
and like I said, he was like the standard Bumblebee that we had in our collection, and you were more than happy with him. But now seeing this one, this guy's kind of not necessarily redundant, but
fading out.
Yeah, it probably wouldn't be. He isn't the number one choice to show off in the collection. So yeah. And of course, Goldbug, we didn't really show him off anyway, but we only got him because, well, the pack with the other Insecticons was really, really cheap, and you know what Nathan's like with bugs and animals and stuff like that. So it's like, yeah, we needed the Insecticons. He wanted the Insecticons, and you know the pack I think had gone down to £40, maybe 50. So he got that for the Christmas. But again, we've not really bothered with Goldbug, but. Obviously, it's the same mould as Netflix, Bumblebee. But yeah, I think this guy is definitely the superior of the three. Or of the two, really, because there's not much difference. So let's move on to transformation. Okay, guys. So whilst Nathan transforms Netflix Bumblebee, we're going to transform this guy. Now, you're probably wondering, why is he over here and not in the middle of the screen? So, whoops, went a bit blurry then. I'm going to try something that I hope is a bit of an experiment, and it might change over the reviews, but I would really like your feedback. I'm going to transform him step by step as the instructions, but I'm going to try and put the instructions round about here, each block that I'm going through. So then when you're watching the transformation, you can see, like, here's the instructions here, and I've took pictures of them, and I'm going to crop the photos and whatever, and then so you can see stage by stage. So if you ever do come back to this video, you're thinking, oh, how, and or there's a certain stage you're sort of stuck at, you can then see how I've done it. So like I said, this is only an experiment. Any feedback, if it's rubbish, it's like, no, just stick to your normal transformation, then that's fine. If it's like, oh, actually, that's actually really useful, we might try and do it going forward. So, step 1. You can see that he's actually hooked, the back is actually hooked on to here. So you just pull that back sort of thing. Let me just try and unhook it. It's like almost hooked on. I'm trying to do it about whilst still having the, oh, there we go. So he's sort of like unclipped there. That's step 1. Step 2 is obviously bring it up a bit. So just like sort of bring it like that. Step 3, open up his chest. Now you pull his head away from the neck into his chest, and then we bring this up on the next step, which is step 5. So there we go. Then step 6, close it up. On to step 7, you fold his arms in, so he's like this. Step 8, you sort of fold his arms. Let me just sort of like push them back so they're like this. Okay. So we then pull the wheels out. So then he's sort of like this, almost T shape. Okay. And then we turn the arms up like that for step 10. So step 11, we come under here, we unfold these, we then turn them around and we open up this step here for step 12. Step 13 is that we fold these back in, and there's a little clip for these to attach onto. Step 14, fold these little parts here down. Okay, like that. Step 15, click, turn it around again, and click like this. Step 16. Ooh. We then sort of bend his chest piece like this, and it will clip in, so you have him like this. It clips in there. 17, we then fold these parts, so we bend his knees, so he's sort of like sitting down, and then we fold his feet to reveal. We fold his feet down. So you'll know you're doing it. You'll know you've done it right when the full part of the I'm a bit stuck here now myself now. There we go. So you sort of fold him in like that, and then it's basically step 19 and 20. It's all about maneuvering him so he clips in place, and just basically getting the step the section out. Still have him like this. So step 21 is about pulling these two around, and as you can see right there, there is a tab. So it's just about lining these up and then just making sure that all this fits in nicely. Again, apologies if the camera angles are not great. Step 22 is obviously bringing this down and in. And again, you've got these little tabs at the back that the car that is going to tab in. And there we have Bumblebee transformed. It's looking a little bit wonky. You just might need a bit of pressing into certain parts, in certain places. But yeah, that's him done. And here he is in his alt mode. So I would say he's a bit more like his original G1 toy in this mode. A bit boxy and not exactly a Volkswagen Beetle, but I like him. I probably could have clipped him in a bit more in some places, but yeah, overall I think it's a solid alt mode, isn't it? What do you think, Nathan?
Yeah, it's really good. I like the cannon placed symbol, but then you get to this spot there, and then you're like, that's not very good. Because like in the cartoon, you wouldn't have really saw that. But yeah, he is quite boxy, like you'd say. He's kind of more of a box than a...
Yeah, so we're going to do a comparison of that in a second. But yeah, overall, I think he's a pretty cool little figure. I think his bot mode is definitely stronger, but, alt mode's not too bad. So let's get on to a comparison to Netflix Bumblebee. So obviously Netflix Bumblebee is a lot more Volkswagen Beetle shaped, than 86 Bumblebee. And again, I think it is one of those where but even then he seems a bit long. I know it sounds really daft, but
I get what you mean. He is quite a long car thing.
Yeah.
Like when you get him next to here, he's so much longer. Like he's that much.
Where
longer.
I always remember Bumblebee being quite stumpy in that sense. Maybe not as boxy as this. Like you almost want the perfect one would be a blend of the two. Like the colouring of this one with this one sort of I suppose the front's not too bad. I don't know, maybe just a little bit more rounded here than like this one, but again the stumpiness in that sense, or the lack of length that this one has compared to this one, I think it does remind me a bit more of Bumblebee. I know he's meant to be a Volkswagen Beetle, which this doesn't remind me of. This does. However, in terms of cartoon accuracy, obviously that's what they're meant to do, but this guy definitely reminds me more of the cartoon version than this guy.
Yeah, Netflix Bumblebee kind of looks like a limousine compared to this guy.
Yeah.
The long stretch. Like this is your normal little stumpy two-seater car, or like those tiny family cars for like a few thousand. This is like your massive limousine for like 30,000.
So overall, Nathan, what final thoughts on Bumblebee?
I'm happy I got him.
You're happy you got him?
Yes.
You think he's worth the £25 we paid for him?
I mean, if he was a little less boxy, maybe a bit more, but yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of a hard thing with Bumblebee. You want him to be more than a core class because he'd probably be too small to do core class, but he also feels too small to be a deluxe. We probably need another class that's sort of in between for these sort of miniature figures. I believe things like Gears and Gears and what's the other one called? Brawn, that's it, are actually pretty cool, but they were still quite small figures, along with your cliff jumper and your Huffer. There sort of needs to be a class for those type of Transformers, not the ones who are a bit too big for core class, but
Toyota.
but a bit, yeah. Small class or small bot class or something like that. You know, I don't know.
Voyager. Deluxe Voyager in the middle. That should be Bumblebee. Voyager.
Yeah. So, and you probably price those ones at about, I suppose, core class is bumping up now to nearly 12, 13 quid in some places anyway. So you're probably looking at more like £15 or, I don't know. It's sort of really hard one. But anyway, that is our review of Bumblebee 86, Studio Series 86. Overall, impressed. Happy we've got him. We've got hopefully Springer, Swoop, and Steeljaw coming very, very soon, as well as Thundertron as the new Thundertron 3-pack as well, and a little bonus on that one. So we will see you soon.